necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome here to Straight Talk on 103.1 FM. Number to call here in the studio if you want to join into the conversation or taking us a specific direction, 745-2626. That's 745-2626.
That's right.
I know you got another number up your sleeve.
And we have another number as well. We can also utilize our WhatsApp number. 928-2562 is the number. And you can use that if you want to send us an audio note, which we will play live on air, or the traditional WhatsApp text message. We are broadcasting live to you from your radio dial on 103.1 FM. But also simulcasting live on YouTube at Straight Talk Radio Show and Instagram vis-a-vis the Rec Room 345. As my colleague said, the phone lines are open on this otherwise open mic Thursday, and certainly inviting members of the listening audience to join us, maybe share some of your comments, views. Maybe there's a topic you want us to discuss this evening. Well, the floor is yours should you wish to accept it. Ellio, how was your day today? You're looking very bright today, I might add. Yes, like almost like an emergency road cone.
Yeah, well, it could be like a semi-stop sign or something.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
But it's orange.
It is orange.
Not red.
It is very orange. It does it come across as red? No, it definitely comes across as orange.
Yeah, it's orange.
On the video.
You know,
but you look very sharp today.
Thank you. You're not too shabby yourself, my friend.
Well, today is, I think it's almost casual Friday. It's casual Thursday for me today.
And I know that I came in here, and I'm going to have to qualify the statement, but I'm going to say it this anyway. As soon as I came in, I could smell you.
You could smell me.
But I want everyone to the listening audience to know.
This shower today, it's a once-a-month thing.
No. This was not a bad thing. It was that just sweet-smelling perfume shop in here.
Perfume shop, yes. Well, it's a manly studio, so we call it cologne. We don't do perfume. As my son would say, he would say, perfume is for ladies, Dad. Cologne is for men. I said, okay, son. I hear you. So there you have it.
That's what they say. I think it's just a matter of what they're using, isn't it?
I guess that's true. I don't know. I've always assumed it's cologne for men,
something like that.
ladies,
I think alcohol versus oil.
Yeah. Well, there is. I mean, certainly on
the toilet.
On the men's front, we have cologne, and then there's a new one called Elixir, which is more heavy on the oil, so therefore the Elixir versus the cologne, supposedly the Elixir, because it's got more oil in it, it tends to linger longer. So if you got a favorite cologne and you want it to last, 8 hours as opposed to just your typical club night, 3 or 4 hours, that's what I'm told.
Yeah, I see, and I kind of prefer the
sales lady tells me.
I think I kind of prefer the alcohol-based one. It's like a fainter, not so strong,
more subdued.
Yeah. I can't take too many strong smells.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, even if it's sweet, it's like, oh God, it's like getting a headache. I feel like a pregnant woman sometimes. That's what your mind went to?
That's where my mind went to, but I thought to myself, do I say this or do I keep this just between us? Because it might be too much information.
Come on. It's just you and I here.
That's right. It's just you and I.
It's just you
talking in a padded room. Somebody gave us a microphone.
Yeah.
Well, listen, just before we get to the good news portion of the day, I do have a public service announcement to make specifically for persons who are getting off work and are heading out in the direction of, say, Tropical Gardens or the King's Roundabout, King's Sports Center Roundabout. There is a road accident. Somebody sent me a picture. It is a picture of a vehicle. It looks like either an SUV or one of those crossover SUVs, the smaller version of it. I don't know how it happened. It's a single-car vehicle from this vantage point. And it has the vehicle turned over literally upside down. It is sitting on its roof.
Oh, my.
With its undercarriage obviously pointing upwards. So I'm hoping no one is injured. But as I'm told, this just occurred there at King's Roundabout. So if you're heading home, you might find it a bit more bumper to bumper along the Linford Pearson highway. It might be worth your while to maybe take a detour vis-a-vis South Sound. Of course, travelers heading home in the evening know that South Sound also tends to fill up rather quickly, and that being a single carriageway road, the lines can get quite long.
A little extended.
A little extended. So if you catch it early, maybe you might be able to avoid the traffic that undoubtedly will be caused by the accident that is in place right now at the King's Roundabout. If you are in your car right now, and certainly if you are near the accident, and maybe you can provide a further update to us either by calling us at 745-2626 or sending us a WhatsApp note, voicemail, picture, whatever you want. Just a little update so that we can keep motorists
All I can
informed.
say is you're getting somewhere. We're already getting our friends out there sending us
Yes.
updates, right?
They're fantastic people. Again, I always say the single greatest resource to any talk show, certainly ours in the past, present, or future, has been the listening audience.
Absolutely.
So we're grateful to them. And in this case, a member of the audience shared it with me, and I am sharing it with you, selling it, as they say, as cheaply as I bought it.
All I can tell you is, this country is having way too many accidents,
Yeah.
It's every day it's like an accident. And this is not a good time or a place.
Right.
I mean, at this point in time, it's everybody trying to head out of town. And oh, my God, I'm laughing because I know how terrible it is even without the accident.
Yes.
Hey, but the upside is you get to listen to us. Right?
Quite right. But when you speak about accidents, normally we see some of these accidents happening in the morning, and that is the most baffling because you see some accidents in the morning, and again, I think in recent months we've even seen cars literally flipped over in morning traffic. And the question that automatically comes to mind, how do you generate enough speed to flip a vehicle in morning bumper-to-bumper traffic?
This is something that takes
Special
skill, expertise. This is something you won't understand, Austin.
Well, I'm thinking it's probably one of those Honda Fits, and if you got 5 or 6 people in the car and you rock back and forth at the right pace, you could actually tip it over yourself.
The metal slippers, I tell you.
Perhaps. But anyway, that's the not-so-good news of the day, but the good news part is you're being warned as early as I can possibly give it to you, and therefore you can probably make a quick detour and save yourself some frustration and maybe a little less traffic by taking South Sound, but you got to act now, because obviously the longer you wait, the secret is undoubtedly out, and I'm sure you won't be the only one taking that detour. And the longer you wait, well, again, South Sound is not going to make much more difference than staying on Linford Pearson.
Well, I mean, considering that, South Sound obviously is impeded significantly when you get by the Hurley's Roundabout.
Yes.
I'm going to call it Hurley's Roundabout.
Yes, yeah.
Because of the traffic that's coming from Linford Pearson Highway. So that should hopefully be a little bit, that should free things up a little bit.
It should indeed. And of course, we also remind you, we got that little stoplight thing just coming off of South Sound.
That's a little stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I mean, it's supposed to somehow. I mean,
You're looking for the guy that put that in place there.
Well, I can tell you, I can point you the direction of the guy that put it in place there. I remember seeing the traffic modeling software that seemed to justify it. And again, the NRA and the Ministry of Planning have really a fantastic, if not state-of-the-art traffic modeling system that can show you, traffic in its real-time moving pace. How they do it, I don't know, but they do it really well. And supposedly, the stoplight that just sits at the exit to South Sound onto the Hurley's roundabout, supposedly is supposed to increase the flow of traffic coming out of the eastern districts towards, say, the Lions Center, because that's the main thoroughfare, and that's where the most complaints come from, whether you're going, I guess, east or west. But certainly it does have a negative consequence, and that, of course, is, you already got a long line coming out of South Sound in the evening, and then you have a stoplight before you get to a roundabout.
You can't win. I mean, I can see the benefits of it, because if you allow, I mean, obviously you have to stop for the traffic that is to the right of you.
Yeah.
So your major artery is Linford Pearson Highway now.
Yeah.
So that's coming, wanting to get, and they're all having to stop for the single line carriage coming out of South Sound. So you're kind of giving that artery from Linford Pearson Highway a chance. Otherwise, it's just going to be completely bad. So I totally understand it.
The only other solution is over, and that, of course, is an overpass.
Oh, well,
but again,
it'll take a couple of years before we get there.
Yeah, that's in line with the monorail service, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
we'll be campaigning for that again soon.
we'll be our children will be campaigning. for that.
No, we're gonna make that happen in our time.
All right.
Austin. Jesus, please. I mean, come on. But you know, speaking about that, seeing how we're on the traffic one.
Yeah.
You know what really bothers me? You see these little, I guess you got to call them cones.
Yes.
Even though they're little cylinder, kind of somebody went around and stuck straws in the middle of the night.
Yes.
So right
delineators, I think they're called.
Yeah, so right at the Alamo roundabout, I call it, which is where you're on Linford Pearson Highway. You have downtown reach to your left coming into town.
Yes.
Okay, so there's those cones right there.
Right.
Now, here's the thing that bothers me, is because as far as I know, the rule is supposed to be that if you're on the roundabout, you got the right of way, right?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to stop.
You're not supposed to stop on a roundabout.
You don't have to stop on a roundabout, and you shouldn't be stopping on the roundabout. Okay, good. I'm just checking.
Yeah.
So if I get on the roundabout and I'm coming from town, I'm going back, to Halifax, to Randike. The cars coming in from out of town, they don't stop anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't stop.
Right.
Because somehow the cone has them in a completely different frame of mind. So the person now that's coming from town should be able to go on that roundabout and go right to the far left to be able to turn on Halifax and Randike. But
Right.
oftentimes you can't.
Right.
Because the cars on the far left coming into town don't give a crap anymore. The rules no longer exist to stop for the traffic on the right.
Yeah.
Those cones have put them in a completely different mindset. I don't have to stop anymore.
But aren't the cones situated in such a way that because the delineators, as I understand it, certainly that you see more commonplace on, say, Spot Straight going east, is that delineator restricts the overtaking or cars hopping from one lane that you're driving in and going to the next lane. So you shouldn't be able
to
the one
on
even
Shamrock.
access the lane at all.
That's the one in Shamrock.
Okay.
Right? So that's continued now. And you don't have brakes where there's a turn.
Right.
Okay, this particular one now is just kind of giving a little bit of a... So in other words, the cars that are coming from town can still go straight into downtown reach.
Yes.
There's a little break there.
Okay.
But outside of that break, there's about a 25, 50 feet of these cones.
Oh, yes.
Which means the car that's coming from in town, about to circle back to go on Halifax or Randike, would normally have just been able to squeeze over to the left.
Yeah, merge left.
Right, just because they need to be on the left.
Yes.
Okay, the cones are preventing them from going on the left immediately. So they have to kind of go another 50 feet up before they can get on the left.
Okay.
And the cars that are now coming into town don't stop anymore. A lot of them don't stop.
Right.
Because it's like, I have the right of way.
Yes.
But so the bottom line is the rules are no longer existing there because the cars that are coming out of town should be stopping for the cars to their right, which are the ones that are on the roundabout that are coming from town.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Just thought I'd draw that to the attention of the police because somehow, unwittingly, we have changed the rules of the roundabout, apparently.
Yes. No, quite right.
Unless, of course, there's an accident, then the rules will apply again.
Yes, indeed. Well, again, if you are experiencing some challenges on your roadways and the delineators, as they're called, the traffic calming measures or otherwise that have been introduced, if you believe that they are causing more problems than they are solving, then again, we want to hear from you, 745-2626. You've just heard one example of such a challenge on our roadways, which may, in and of itself, inadvertently be contributing to accidents.
I can honestly tell you, because I have to take that turn every day, I'm not giving any hot secrets. I mean, Cayman, everybody knows everyone.
Quite right.
But you can't make that immediate left turn, and there's a lot of cars. They just don't stop. They come through flying. Once they're on that left lane, they just come through flying.
Yes.
Completely new rules.
Well, it is 47 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock, and we want to pause and take a very short commercial break. But this is supposed to be our good news segment, and we are going to share some good news because we had the very distinct pleasure of checking out one of, I guess you can call it, Cayman's newest restaurant, and we're going to tell you what we thought of it last night coming up next. So don't even think about changing that dial. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come. And the phone lines are open, 745-2626, right here on 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo FM.
Hey man, could it be you? Tortuga's 10K giveaway is back, and someone's walking away with $10,000 in cash. Every time you spend $25 at Tortuga Fine Wine and Spirits or discount liquors, in-store or online at tortuga.ky, you get a shot at winning big. As well as $10,000 in cash, we've got thousands in giveaways to hand out every week. Think staycations, the latest iPhones, exclusive experiences, and more. Get in to win. Visit tortuga.ky for the full terms and conditions.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Have your say on 745-2626. Bobo FM.
And welcome back, hey man, to more Straight Talk here on 103.1 FM with your host, Ellio Solomon, and myself, Austin Harris. The phone lines are open at 745-2626. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Did we get a comment, Mr. Solomon, or was that my imagination?
A comment?
Yeah, did we get a comment on the traffic?
No.
No? Okay, all right.
Nothing on the traffic.
Nothing on the traffic.
People are just listening to us sitting in the traffic. You might want to remind them about the accident.
Yes, again.
On the roundabout.
All right, thank you very much. As we began, if you are heading east in the direction towards, say, the King's Roundabout, whether it be Tropical Gardens or perhaps even further east, please be advised there is a traffic accident on the King's Roundabout. There appears to be a vehicle, either a crossover type SUV that has overturned. It is literally sitting on its roof on the side of the roundabout itself. We were shared some images of it as it took place. So clearly it is still there right now, but that might be contributing to some unusually slow bumper-to-bumper traffic heading off towards in the direction of the Linford-Pearson Highway and further east. If you can, you might want to detour. Again, South Sound is a good detour. Wherever you may be, you might be able to catch it soon or earlier. But of course, as we know, South Sound also tends to fill up, so that detour might actually be worse than the problem. But it is a traffic accident on the roadways, and whatever we can do to advise the listening audience of it in advance. And if there were a simple, workable detour that we could say, well, if you just take this road and avoid it altogether, believe me, we would suggest it. But there is a road accident, and
not much you can do about it.
There's not much we can do about it at all. But if you are driving in your car and you do happen to cross the area of King's Roundabout, maybe you can send us an update. Maybe let us know if the vehicle has been moved by emergency services personnel, which I doubt. But, hey, miracles still happen to this day, right?
I hope the police are out there to help.
I hope so. I hope so indeed. Good news. Mm-hmm. Last night, we had the distinct pleasure to check out a new restaurant in downtown Georgetown. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's pronounced, I think, Kojima.
Yeah.
Kojima. So Kojima, or if you're really Japanese, Kojima. You know, I don't know how they would say that.
Hey, you did that pretty good, Austin.
Well, you know, it's all those years of watching Godzilla movies.
You got to speak. That's it.
You have to do it deep.
Hold on. Japanese speak from the diaphragm.
Japanese speak from the diaphragm. Quite right. Exactly.
Kojima.
Right. Kojima.
Yeah.
So anyway, Kojima is, I guess you can call it a sushi restaurant, but it's a lot more than just sushi. It is.
Because I had the steak.
Yes. I was quite surprised by that. You know, Ellio's, to me, normally like, Mr. Healthy Eater all the way across.
Steak is part of healthy eating.
I didn't know he ate red meat. I was convinced he was a chicken and fish man only. No. But I was thrilled that he ate red meat. And not only is he a red meat eater, but you eat red meat the proper way. The medium to the medium rare. A little bloody.
Yeah.
Not rare to the point where I just cut off the horns and put it on my plate. That's a little too much. But certainly I think you ate it the right way. Okay. But that's my point. They've got fantastic steak. You got your New York strip. They also have the Wagyu, which we did not have.
No.
But
we did witness it being consumed.
We did witness it being consumed, and the look of absolute satisfaction, if not heavenly, it just melts in your mouth. I thought I was watching an M&M commercial for a second there. But yeah, the food is fantastic, and it's run by a Caymanian couple, a local couple. They've just been open a week. They're open from 11:30 in the afternoon all the way until, I guess, 10 o'clock at night. The food is phenomenal.
Yeah,
I had the
11:30 to 10:30.
Yeah, I had the sushi. And the sushi, I mean, I like sushi, but the thing about sushi is you got to get it obviously fresh. And of course, your chef has got to know what they're doing. Well, they definitely have chefs that look like they know what they're doing. I think one of them may, in fact, even be from Indonesia, and others may actually be from the continent of Japan or otherwise. But they're all very professional, fantastic staff. And as I was saying last night to Ellio, I said, a sure sign that you've really knocked it out of the park on a Japanese or any type of cultural restaurant is if you see that culture, the Asians and whatnot in this case, actually dining in the restaurant and the look of satisfaction on their faces, like, just like Mama used to make. Again, using my diaphragm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But and
really
they've got outside dining. You can dine inside or outside.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful view yesterday because of the cruise ship was there.
Yes. Again,
Not that we're going to go there.
We might.
But it was a beautiful cruise ship.
We might go there because there's some good news related to cruise ships that I'm eager to share with you because I make it feel like
because you know how excited I get.
I do know how excited you get, and I want to share that with you. But first, again, if you have a chance, and again, I want to encourage the listening audience to check it out. If you like sushi, this is the spot.
And steak.
If you don't like sushi, if there's steak, check it out. It is definitely worth the price of admission. Despite the Wagyu, New York strip, and the sushi,
and it was a great audience there too. It was a great clientele. I mean, dining. I mean, it was really classy.
Yeah, no, a really, really good group of people all through the restaurant. And again, normally you would think, cuisine at this level would be expensive. It's not. That's the surprising part. It is really very affordable in comparison to, what you would expect at quality steakhouses or quality sushi houses. I won't even get into the liquor list. The liquor menu, they have some fantastic choices, again, from your rums to your scotches to your wines. Really, it is definitely worth a stop. There is parking in the complex itself. Now, Kujima, you might recognize is sort of down the road, maybe down the block a little bit from Rackham's. It's in that new plaza where there is a art studio. An art gallery in particular. It's impossible to miss. It's one of those complexes where the walls are all glass so you can see right through it type thing. It's really well done. And as Ellio pointed out, there's an outdoor aspect of it as well as an indoor. It really is overall very, very civilized, very well put together.
Very classy.
And from the food to the service, it is just worth it. So I would definitely... if we were to start a restaurant guide, Ellio and Austin's, restaurant guide of must-hit places.
That would be one.
That would be one. It would certainly be at the top of the list. So definitely check it out. And again, if you're feeling patriotic like we are, and believing in supporting local, it is run by a local couple who are just simply adorable. And we'll just leave it there, but you'll get to meet them when you go. And check it out. Give us a call. Tell us what you thought. Tell if it was a good recommendation, and if it was a bad recommendation, well, maybe you can lose our number and don't let us know. We'll just
don't subscribe to our restaurant.
Don't subscribe to our restaurant guide. What do we know?
Sure, that won't be the case.
2626 is the number. We got about 3 minutes before we have to pause and check in.
Going to squeeze in a good news in 3 minutes.
I'm going to squeeze in one good news.
Or at least started halfway.
At least halfway. Cayman Brac had an uncommon visitor yesterday, a cruise ship. According to the manager of the Cayman Brac port, about midday, 451 of the 657 total passengers on board the MSC cruises disembarked from Cayman Brac to be greeted by members from the Cayman Brac community, including the District Commissioner, Mark Tibbetts. There were about 15 concession stands set up, properly covered. The Premier, the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly, was there to greet and receive them. As I'm told, there were perhaps one or two others. The Scott stock was set up very nicely, selling crafts and whatnot, vendors for the visitors. And by all indications, it was a very good day, economy-wise for Cayman Brac by the visit of a cruise ship. So, whilst some might, wish they would disappear from existence altogether, again, we continue to see evidence of where those cruise ships offer direct economic benefit to our otherwise small island.
That is good news because, again, you could see where Cayman, things could be so involved, so convoluted, that you can get lost in terms of what's providing an economic benefit and what is not. Whereas Cayman Brac, it's kind of like, not to criticize that very little is happening there. It's much easier to gauge in terms of what the effect of something. And if you're hearing that the cruise tourism has had such a positive effect there, that is indeed positive news. Very good news, Austin. And I think that deserves a...
That does deserve a... Well done. Well done.
That was a good one. I like that one.
Our continued use.
Maybe the Brackers will all vote yes for cruise tourism.
Well, we did get an update about 10 minutes ago. We see an image of the King's Roundabout. Emergency medical crews are there. The ambulance are there. And I think perhaps one government vehicle could be the NRA on site at the roundabout. As the writer says, no rush there. They like to keep the scene as active as long as possible. So motorists, you can expect continued traffic jams as you travel along Linford Pearson. That is a direct result of a road accident, single vehicle accident so far, that took place at the King's Roundabout. We have to pause and take a short commercial break, check in with the top of the hour news brought to you by the BBC. But the phone lines are open. Keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here on 103.
The BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
The BBC World Service makes programs with a uniquely global perspective.
Enlighten us. Where do we start?
The latest world news and current affairs.
The very best in global arts and culture.
What has been happening on the financial markets today.
Social issues, political stories.
Everything was there in a way that I never heard before.
The BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
For business, they say location, location, location. But really, there's no better location than right here, right now on your mobile phone or laptop. Buy and sell your pre-owned gear where the island is searching online. Buy and sell on ektrade.com. That's ektrade.com.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. Powered by Health Services Authority. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. President Trump has welcomed what he called a very promising statement from Vladimir Putin on a possible ceasefire with Ukraine, but said it wasn't complete. He said they had to get a deal over with fast, and it would be very disappointing for the world if Russia didn't agree. Danny Aberhard reports.
On Tuesday, America's Secretary of State said the ball was in Moscow's court after announcing that Ukraine had agreed in principle to a 30-day ceasefire. If so, it looks like President Putin has caught it in a sticky net. He's backed the idea, in theory at least, but he stressed it should lead to a long-lasting peace that addressed what he called the root causes of the conflict. Questions Mr. Putin raised included what it might mean for Russia's ongoing offensive to recapture all territory in its Kursk region, how a ceasefire could be monitored along the lengthy front lines, and whether Ukraine would use it to rearm or mobilize more troops.
Ukraine's President Zelensky has condemned Mr. Putin's comments as predictable and manipulative. He said the Russian leader was afraid to tell President Trump directly that he wanted to continue the war and was surrounding the ceasefire idea with preconditions that would delay it or make it impossible. A U.S. judge has ordered 6 federal agencies to reinstate thousands of recently hired employees fired as part of President Trump's purge of the federal workforce. Judge William Alsup ruled that the dismissal of probationary workers was unjust. saying it was a sad day when staff were sacked for poor performance, despite the authorities knowing that it was a lie. One of the main stock indices in the United States, the S&P 500, has confirmed it's officially in correction after another week of heavy losses. A correction is a drop of more than 10%. Investors have been spooked by President Trump's trade and economic policies and have been looking for safer bets. Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed on the text of a peace agreement to end more than 3 decades of conflict in the South Caucasus. Both countries said negotiations had concluded, but no date has been set to sign the deal. Here's Rehan Dmitry.
Peace talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan began 2 years ago, shortly after Baku regained full control of the Nagorno-Karabakh territory, the land over which the two neighboring countries fought for decades. The progress has been slow, with a lot of points of contention, including demands from Azerbaijan for Armenia to change its constitution. The draft peace agreement, according to the Armenian side, would end the deployment of third country forces along the shared and heavily militarized 1,000-kilometer border.
You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. That was Rehan Dmitry. And don't forget, you can also get BBC World News from the internet on our website. A Ugandan and United Nations judge has been convicted in Britain of forcing a young Ugandan woman into slavery. Prosecutors told the court that Lydia Mugambe exploited her power to deceive the women coming into Britain and working as a maid and babysitter without pay. Mugambe denied coercion, claiming she treated the woman with love and care. She was convicted under Britain's Modern Slavery Act. The Taliban government has rejected allegations that Afghanistan supported the militants who hijacked a train in Pakistan's Baluchistan province on Tuesday. The Pakistani military says 21 hostages and 33 militants were killed. More details from Azadeh Mashiri in Islamabad.
Pakistan's military has claimed the deadly attack on the Jafar Express was planned from Afghanistan. It also says throughout the incident, the militants used satellite phones to communicate with accomplices across the border. These claims have been firmly denied by the Taliban government, who called them irresponsible. Balochistan borders Afghanistan and is home to several separatist groups who accuse the central government of exploiting its rich natural resources. A spokesman for the Taliban government insisted no members of these groups have a presence in Afghanistan.
The former president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, will make his first appearance before the International Criminal Court on Friday. He was arrested on Monday on murder charges linked to his war on drugs, in which thousands of purported dealers and users were killed. He's defended his actions, arguing that he was trying to fight street crime. Figures suggest that global sea levels rose by more than expected last year. Analysis by the US space agency NASA found they increased by 0.59 centimetres, well above the 0.343 centimetres predicted by scientists. NASA blamed an unusual amount of ocean warming. And that is the BBC News.
Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, right here on 103.1. And of course, also streaming on 89.1. And again, I want to encourage everyone, all of our friends out there.
Yes.
Just take the time, text someone, and let them know that they can listen to Straight Talk on 103.1. Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated.
Indeed. And certainly, again, if you are tuned in via your radio dial on 89.1, you want to change that to 103.1 and save that number, because whilst we are being broadcast on both frequencies as of the end of this month, 89.1 will, as we say, go the way of the dodo and be extinct, and you will no longer hear anything from that. But hopefully you will have heeded our call and saved 103.1.
I had a thought.
Is it a good thought? Well, is it a thought we can share on the radio?
Yeah. Both dogs are running, but the rope on the 89.1 is a little bit shorter.
Just a little shorter. It's going to run out much quicker, much quicker.
It grabs them by the throat pretty quickly.
It certainly does. As we started out the program, of course, continuing a public service announcement for motorists heading out of Georgetown, particularly along the Linford-Pearson Highway in the direction of the King's Roundabout. If you are at the tail end and wondering why is traffic moving so slowly today, there is, in fact, a vehicular accident right at the roundabout itself. It involved at least one vehicle that had been turned upside down. Emergency personnel and crews are on the scene as of about 15 minutes ago. And, well, as one writer said, they're going to keep the scene as active as long as possible. But that might be contributing to your road delay today. It might be a bit more bumper to bumper than usual. That is the reason. Not much you can do about it now, except, again, turn up the radio, make sure your seatbelt is securely fastened, and tune in to Straight Talk. We'll keep you informed on everything you need to know. And what we don't talk about, well, you don't need to know it.
Probably not worth talking about.
It's probably not worth talking about. No need to stress about it. It's not important. We do have one comment going back to our conversation, particularly on the new traffic calming measures, the delineators and whatnot have been placed along the roads, as well as cone heaven. It says, as for the Cone Island, as I now refer to Cayman, this is the NRA's knee-jerk reaction. I'm confused. Our silver bullet roundabouts appear to not be working. And, of course, the cones have now exploded on the scene as the fix, but obviously not. Whilst on the subject, with regards to the company or companies that are hired to put these out during roadworks, has anyone given them instruction as to how to distance warnings and not use, say, 90 degrees when blocking the lanes? This is not the first time I've come up upon a lane blocked at 40 miles per hour and have less than 100 feet to negotiate.
Oh, yeah. I'm right there with you.
Trying to change the lanes, especially worse when it's there immediately around corners. And again, you're not expecting it to be there, but nonetheless, it is there. So certainly to your point, Ellio, you are not the only one who feels this absolute disaster of a solution that is simply having, I guess, unintended consequences.
Kudos to that particular author, because let me tell you, they're right on.
Yeah.
You know, this whole issue that you got about 3 seconds, 3 seconds to navigate out of a lane because one's occupied.
Yes.
You know, come on, guys, give us maybe 150, 200 feet. 20 feet doesn't really cut it.
Yes, no, absolutely.
I don't know. It's crazy. So definitely a valid point. But yeah, I've seen some changes on these delineators, as you call it here on the roundabouts. And I can tell you, it has changed the perception of some of the persons that are driving on the roundabouts. And actually, I don't want to even say it's bad drivers. Because some of the people I see doing it, I think legitimately it just kind of puts them in a different frame of mind. They're almost thinking like, I can just continue on.
Right.
Because that's why they put the cones there. So in other words, what I'm saying is you could have a situation where you say, these guys are just really reckless and so on. But I don't think that the majority of people that are doing it, at least not at that particular roundabout that I'm talking about by Alamo Downtown Reach, I think a lot of them, their mindset has been changed because they see that delineator. And it tells them you can go because the other cars can't come.
Yes.
And they're completely forgetting that the person on that roundabout should have unfeathered access and should be able to go right to the left.
Yeah.
Because then they look at you strange too, like, what are you doing? You're trying to run into me.
Quite right.
I have the right of way.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you don't.
No, you don't,
no,
as
you
a matter
don't.
of fact.
And don't make the police have to show up to tell you that despite the delineators, my friend, you are wrong.
Right. That's the conversation I have with myself all the time when I am driving, and, I feel the claws of road rage starting to work their way to the surface, and I just settle myself down and say, you know what, if only these people would learn the rules of the road, we would be so much further ahead if we just understood, what the word merge means, what give way means, what a stop sign actually means. It's not a rolling slowly, but keep the wheels rolling in the direction you want to go. No, it means actually come to a stop. But anyway, I digress. We don't want to go down that road. But yes, just motorists, be careful. Accident at the King's Roundabout. And at this point in time, if you're heading home, there's not much you can do about it. detouring vis-a-vis South Sound is not going to help you at all, because it's now 12 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. You know what it's like because you're in it. We got two, I guess, stories that we want to sort of follow up on today. I think the first one, before we get to our primary subject, again, is along the lines of more public announcements. We've been talking a little bit about it. We talked about it this week, obviously, about the measles impacting South Florida, encouraging, of course, visitors, Caymanians, residents of the Cayman Islands who like to take long weekends to Florida, particularly Miami or otherwise, to make sure you're vaccinated up. And again, the Cayman Islands Adult and International Vaccination Clinic, located at the Public Health Services Authority, is doing vaccinations for MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella. You can make an appointment, go down there, particularly in advance of your visit to the U.S., just to make sure you're safe.
I can see you drove us through COVID, Austin, because I didn't even know what that MMR for. I keep hearing that.
MMR, yes. Measles, mumps, and rubella.
Yeah. I know it's one of those shots that you shouldn't get, probably.
You vaccine denier, you.
Yeah, you got me.
I do.
Take this, take that, and pray a lot. Well,
you pray a lot.
Healthy.
You pray a lot, and you have other remedies, which, again,
I think people
they're good memory, because listen,
it works, right?
They do work. There are remedies that existed in this country before the advent of modern medicine, and then we call it bush medicine. But it worked then, worked for our grandparents, and I dare say to this day, when all else fails, mom and dad break out the bush medicine little notebook. Yeah. And they apply it, and it does the trick.
Well, I can tell you, pretty much since 2003, I've been a healthy boy.
Yes.
There's a lot of things we can do to be healthy, right? You can't first of all sit on your butt all day,
right, and
then say you're going to be healthy. That's not going to cut it. And the first layer of protection we need to know is our skin, right? Keep some oil on your skin. Yes. That's the first one.
Is that what it is? Is that true?
Yeah.
Stay moisturized?
Do you know that the skin is the first line of defense for the immune system?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, and as much as you might love a hot shower.
Epidermis.
As much as you might love a hot shower, I'm not sure it's great for you.
Well, they say it's two different times. Hot shower better at nighttime, cold shower better in the morning. But again, we can, there are different.
Remove your water heater and ask yourself the simple question: where would you be taking a hot bath this evening? Nowhere. Okay. Take a cold shower.
Take a cold shower.
Take a cold shower.
So anyway, another public service announcement. We have been watching, and not we as in Ellio and I, and certainly those in the media, those of you in the public perhaps have bigger issues like bills and worrying about where the next dollar is going to come from, to be perhaps focused on that far in the horizon. But that's all right. You don't have to. That's what you have us for. The avian influenza, better known as the bird flu, has, of course, found its way to the Americas, the U.S., but in particular, just this week, it has found its way into our region, particularly in Puerto Rico. According to the World Health Organization, a discovery was made in the backyard flock of chickens in the territory's first case of the highly pathogenic avian influenza or bird flu since February 2022. Now, the officials here in Cayman are said to be monitoring the situation in Puerto Rico, and they're even considering a cull of the feral chickens that you oftentimes see sprawled across the Cayman Islands, whether it be on the beaches, which they were there at Public Beach oftentimes, but you can pretty much see them anywhere. But just like culling the invasive green iguana, health officials and agricultural officials being supported by local farmers are considering doing a cull on feral chickens as a means of preventing the spreading of the avian bird flu.
They're not going to cull our local chickens, though, are they?
Well, that's what they said. Culling of feral chickens could be carried out by the government. So that's at least on the drawing board, if they haven't already pulled the trigger, so to speak. Again, according to government officials here at home, there are currently no reported cases of bird flu in the Cayman Islands, wild or domestic bird populations, so nothing to worry about right now. Also, The bird flu primarily spreads through direct contact between infected animals, most commonly birds. So if you're a farmer and you're handling, say, for example, the daily egg count, you might be at risk. But unless you're picking up chickens and roosters and handling birds, you probably don't have much to worry about. Also, so far, despite the rise of bird flu, there hasn't been any human-to-human transmission. So it won't jump from your friend to you because you're in close proximity. So if you have a friend who's a farmer or otherwise who are dealing with birds, he or she might get it. I know. I'm thinking about it. Trust me. I'm getting to you.
You keep throwing farmer in there.
Well, it's what it is. It's what they say. That's what the advisory is advising. Farmers.
You might want like I'm being stabbed here.
You might want to, take out the cross, some garlic and, social distancing. You got a lot of practice at that. Some holy water would be advisable, just to protect yourself from the local farmers. Just kidding, which Ellio is. But it does say that unless you are not handling birds, you don't have much risk of worrying about getting bird flu.
Yeah, I don't have any birds
but nonetheless, local farmers, there are people in Cayman who do handle it. We don't have any existence of bird flu in the Cayman Islands, and we pray that we do not
don't have it. Don't worry about it.
Get it. But again, the good news is this is not COVID. If it does find its way to our shores, and heaven forbid it does, impact a few humans, it's not the end of the world. It's traditionally being treated with Tamiflu, which is a readily available medication, and again, within a couple of days, maybe a week or two, the symptoms tend to go away. They do tend to be very similar to the flu, which is oftentimes why they're oftentimes confused with it being a flu versus something more serious. There are greater headaches and body aches that go with it that perhaps may be somewhat different than the flu. But the good news is, A, it's not in Cayman. B, if it does ever get to Cayman, we can treat it, and it won't turn into a pandemic that shuts down the world. We hope. Despite what the Simpsons, may predict for the future of 2025. But the avian flu has found its way to the Caribbean. That's the news of the day. It's in Puerto Rico. And again, local health officials here and agricultural officials have it on their radar. And one of the things they're considering is culling some of the stray chickens and roosters that patrol our streets on a daily basis. I don't know how you feel about that. 745-2626 is the number. On to our primary topic. Shall we go there, or do you have something you wish to add before we make that
I have
transition?
to say that I'm hoping you're not thinking that the avian flu is good news.
No, the avian flu is not good news. That's why I bring it up at 5:20.
Just checking.
We're out of the good news section now.
Just checking.
Yes, yeah. No, it's not. It is not good news for the avoidance of doubt. It is not good news, and again, it's something that we keep, as to coin my favorite action hero, Captain Jack Sparrow, we keep a wary eye on the horizon.
All right,
just in case.
Jack Sparrow. Yes, we move on to one of the main topics for today.
To the meat and potatoes of the day. There was a local opinion piece published in today's Cayman Compass, written by James E. Whitaker. Now, this is James E. Whitaker, the solar man, not James Whitaker, the regular contributing journalist for the Compass. But he has offered up an opinion under the title, Why We Need a National Vote for Premier and Cabinet. Now, it's a very lengthy opinion piece. I won't read all of it. I would encourage you, certainly, if you are at home or perhaps you're a passenger in your car and you got your little handheld device, you want to pull it up and take a look at it. But I will read a little bit just so we can get context with your permission. It begins, one of the most common complaints among the voting populace in the Cayman Islands is the continual lack of positive outcomes on the key issues facing the country, i.e. cost of living, affordable housing, energy, healthcare, education, and more. Many of us believe that the root cause of this is because our elected officials, who are placed in the highest positions of government leadership, are often inexperienced and unqualified, and thus largely incapable of effectively resolving Cayman's ever-growing problems, hurting us economically, socially, and environmentally, while placing Cayman's future prosperity at ever more risk. While not all elected officials fall into this category. Our continued inability to resolve the majority challenges facing the Cayman Islands can be linked to an overall lack of leadership competency. This is not to post in the least that we should keep retreading legacy politicians, retreading legacy politicians solely based on experience. Not quite sure what that sentence was meant to say, but anyway, as they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. However, we should broaden the powers of the voters to assess who is most fit to lead. And this is where we try to jump forward. How then can voters of the Cayman Islands better address our challenge of enhancing the quality of its overall leadership and thus attain better government performance and outcomes for the people? I believe we must start by creating 3 distinct branches of government, which encompasses national, constituency, and district voting. And here are the recommendations. 1, the executive branch of government would be the first branch, comprising the premier. The minister is elected through a national vote. The elected members of the executive branch lead the country and the ministries, and some of its members, namely the Premier, Minister of Finance, and Minister of Tourism, are mandated members of cabinet. So he's proposing that we create the first branch of government, that being the executive, and we would do so through a national vote. The second branch that we would create, according to the writer, would be Parliament of the Cayman Islands, which is the legislative branch, elected through a constituency poll, which would remain unchanged from the current status quo under the one-man, one-vote process. So he proposes that we create a second branch of government called the Parliament, and how voters would elect that group would be through the one-man, one-vote process. And the third branch that we would create would be district councils with leadership boards that are democratically elected through district votes. The district councils consult with members of parliament and their constituencies in their district on an ongoing basis to continually address issues critical to voters. So again, we would cast a national vote for premier and ministers, a constituency vote for members of parliament, and a district council leaders or district vote for district councils. Now, you heard me pause particularly on the word create because, I don't know whether the writer intended it or just didn't know. But we do have already 3 branches of government under the Constitution, and they are the executive, the legislative or legislature, and the judiciary. Mm-hmm. The legislative would be considered the parliament. So his number 1 and number 2, we don't need to create them. They already exist. What I think we need to create, in his opinion,
district
is
councils.
The circumstances under which the members who occupy those positions are voted into office. And of course, this is looking at a combination of national voting, single member voting, and district voting. A combination of all 3 of the kinds locked in to the overall solution. But you certainly were a few weeks ago talking about the move towards a national vote. What are your thoughts on the opinion piece?
Yeah, well, again, I haven't read all of it completely, but I think I got generally the gist of it, and I thank you for going through it.
You're welcome.
I definitely believe, first of all, I want to stress that, I mentioned before that if you look at the Cayman Islands in relation to the constitutional changes that we got, specifically when we talk about getting this one man, one vote, I remember it has always been an argument in the Cayman Islands where people were saying, oh, we need less fighting, more unity. Mm-hmm. That's what I always heard.
Yeah.
And if you take that on board, then the question to ask yourself is, if we wanted more unity, less division, less fighting, why would we implement single-member constituencies? And as I've said before, a lot of the arguments, and I'm happy to go through it again, but a lot of the arguments that were proposed that was going to happen with single-member constituency just simply didn't happen, can't happen. Again, one of those is, oh, you get greater accountability. I'm going to ask you, how can you hold a person accountable if they're not, for example, a member of the government? And even if they're a member of the government, but let's just say they're a backbencher, they're not a minister.
Yeah.
How are you going to hold them accountable for what? Hey, you didn't build a park. You didn't get the road fixed. Well, I'm sorry, he couldn't. Mm-hmm. He can try to influence that decision, But ultimately, he's not the decision maker. So when we look at that, I have always been a proponent of a national vote. I think a national vote gives us more unity and less division. I think it's a situation where you have 19 board of directors, and quite simply, everyone should have a chance to try to influence those 19 seats. That's my view. And persons might get up and say to you, oh yeah, but you couldn't possibly give an individual 19 votes. I actually believe people are intelligent enough to vote anywhere between 1 and 19 persons. What I'm hearing there from that person is at least, I think, a good move in the right direction, because at least we're talking about national vote. We're at least starting to see the leadership saying, hey, shouldn't our leaders be elected from a national vote? Where I have challenges with that is you have groupings, you have parties, etc. How could you end up that your general public votes for one particular leader, but on the ground, the members that have to serve him are completely against him? You could end up with a situation like that. You'd have to tell me, educate me on how that situation is going to be resolved.
Right.
So you need to be able to know that you're going to get a leader, and that ideally you want to be able to put him in there with a group that allows him to fulfill the things that you said you need fulfilled, which is why you want to change the system in the first place.
Yes.
So you should be able to have your party representatives or whoever it is, and people are getting up and voting for those individuals across the board, one way, shape, or another. Across the island, everyone gets a vote. And I think, like I said, that little hybrid there, what I like about it is that it's encouraging. At least we're now starting to see as individuals and as a country that perhaps a single-member constituency isn't the right thing. I'll quote again, even Kenneth Bryan, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, stated at the Chamber of Commerce function that they had a few weeks ago that he thinks that we should change from the single-member constituency and go back to the way it was.
Right.
And I think it's advancement simply to say, listen, this particular system is not working. And I can assure you, if anyone wants to have the discussion, please text us. Let me know if you want me to go on and ramble about it some more. But it is more costly. It causes more division. And we're going to continue to get less things done. I think even just let's just look from a national perspective. If you have a candidate and he has to run knowing that there might be 15 voters in the BRAC that might determine whether he wins or not, it means that you're going to get candidates that are ensuring that they are nationally, not just in one little constituency, they're going to be nationally knowledgeable.
Yeah.
They want to know what the issues are in the BRAC. They want to know what the issues are in East End, Georgetown, West Bay. It doesn't matter. You're getting national candidates. And there are issues when we were in Parliament that couldn't be resolved simply because a particular group was going to possibly lose their seats if it was done and impacted their district. But yet, had you had national votes, they could have made the right decisions because they know that overall throughout the country, they would have gotten the votes they needed to get reelected as opposed to losing it based on even multi-member, even worse, single member. Phone lines, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, caller, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
How you doing?
Thank you very much. Got your call, you're on the air. Want to comment on the discussion on the table, or you have somewhere else to take us?
I know Ellio is good at math, so I want him to explain to me why, if we go back to the old system, why that would be better than equality of a voter.
You don't want me to explain why we should go to a national vote?
You can do that if you want, but you said that Kenneth said that he believes we should go back to what we had before.
Yeah,
do you discard that, or
no? I don't discard that. I think that what he's indicating is that system in itself was better than what we have now. Now he can argue for himself what he wants to say. I can tell you that there are benefits. So, for example, some of the benefits that you have now is that every time you get a single-member constituency, technically that means in terms of the allotments of money, you need offices for each individual in each constituency. So just that in itself creates an additional expense. And if you even take that from 19 and carry it back to the 6 that we had before, right away, you're reducing the cost of government. You're reducing the amount of money that's going to be spent, which, by the way, again, that is taxpayers' money. That means it's you and I that are paying more money on our fees, permit fees, whatever we're paying, to have potentially 19 constituency offices as opposed to 6, right? So surely anyone can see the math there in terms of economic benefit just on that item alone.
Caller?
Yeah. Okay. So I think what happens a lot. I'm not saying that this is the case for you, because I think it's clear in your mind, but the average person, I think, confuses single member constituency with one man, one vote, and so let's think about it for a second and say, well, what if Kenneth is onto something and we should have multi-member constituencies, right? Well, the only way that I think you could do a multi-member constituency while adhering to the principle of one man, one vote is you would have to have equal number of representatives in each of the constituencies. And therefore, you would effectively have the equivalent political say in that arrangement. But to go back to the way it was, where in Georgetown, I think under the current arrangement, you'd probably have like 7 votes now in Georgetown versus 1 vote in East End. And it's not hard to figure out that if somebody in Georgetown can choose 7 of the 19, and someone in East End can only choose 1 of 19, that there's a bit of inequality there.
Yeah, and this is something, and you raise a very good point, because the one argument that I can agree with is in terms of equality of vote. So single-member constituency is something separate. Multi-member constituency is something separate. Let's talk about equality of vote. You could make the votes equal by giving everybody 1 vote, giving them all 2 votes, 3 votes, 5 votes, 6 votes, 7 votes, whatever it is. But in this particular case, yes, whether the guy in East End is getting 1 vote or the guy in Georgetown is getting 1 vote, as a voter, they're equal.
Right.
Forget about because and this is where it starts. When you get all these little constituencies, don't you notice how it's changing everybody's behavior? Yeah, but you're not in my area.
Mm-hmm.
And these lines did not exist before. And you have to get to a point where take these lines out of your mind. Right?
Well,
we hold on 1 second. We should be one country. And I'm saying to you, if you give the voter in Georgetown 1 vote, he's equal to the man in East End who has 1 vote. Mm-hmm. There is equality there.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So, but on the point about we're one country, the reason why you divide up responsibilities is just, for management purposes. It's not intended to create rival tribes that is loyal to different chiefs. That's not the purpose of. But unfortunately, I understand the sentiment to which you're referring, and have heard people say similar things, which I just shake my head at it because I think it's so immature. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be thinking at such a low level. We should be striving for much more mature ways of perceiving how we administer the country. But it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But the point that I'm not opposed to if you want to change a system. I'm not opposed to that, but there are certain concepts that I think we need to be careful to maintain, and like the political equality of voters is one of them, because that has been misused in the past, and essentially it meant that certain people were given power to essentially decide, and if you take the view to say that you're going to do it island-wide. The other way of thinking about island-wide is that you, instead of having 19, then everyone could have one vote.
Yeah.
And
you could do it that way too.
But you see, here's what one of the issues would be with having an island-wide vote. What you end up with is that the candidates then pick and choose which areas of the country will be ignored, and that is something that you won't be able to get around that, because they'll just say, well, I don't need. I could win if I could just clean up this side of the island.
No, I don't think. With the greatest respect, I don't think that could happen. There is no way. So? No, there's no way you're going to run around. Again, you have to really get the lines out of your mind. You're not going to run around Georgetown and say, oh, well, Georgetown is going to give me enough votes to get elected, while I'm running around Georgetown and East End. You are going to lose. Okay? You're not going to want to ignore any area. Here is what you could probably give me as an argument. You could give me an argument, well, if I had to argue against myself, I could say, well, then am I not setting it up that the guy with the most money is going to win because he can reach the most voters?
I was going to get to that.
Okay, and this is why I said if you do it, as far as I'm concerned, even in the present system, I think we really need to remove money from the campaign process as much as possible, and we need to have it come down to public debates.
But I don't understand. How are you going to remove the money?
By making it that at the end of the day, you don't spend money to get elected. You get nominated. You're made to be a candidate, and once you do a candidate, there's a series of debates that takes place, and that is the information that the voter gets in order to be able to determine who they vote for. That's how you work to remove money. And therefore, a candidate can't say, oh, I was spending $100 because I had to do X, Y, and Z. No, you can just lose your seat right away because there's absolutely no need for you to be spending money anymore.
With the greatest of respect.
Yeah.
I think this island is a playground for pirates. And regardless of what you say about that, I don't think there's any hope in hell of changing that.
No, well, that's
I understand what.
But just pause. But just pause. You just made a statement, so let's just address it. You can say it's a country of pirates, but it doesn't matter. I can tell you that the piracy will be greater if you're allowing campaign spending, where you can spend millions of dollars even before nomination day. Where you're going to get less piracy is in what I just proposed. So if you're going to talk about piracy, then say, Ellio, yes, that will in fact reduce the piracy.
Well, I'm not convinced of that because.
Well, you just need to think about it.
But here's the reason why. If that logic was true, it would be proof as to how we snapped out illicit drugs. And we know how that went.
Sorry, I'm lost on that one. Sorry, say that again.
Well, we have hard line against illicit drugs. How's that working out?
How it works out is that anyone that's pushing drugs is illegal, and when they get caught, they go to prison. And that's why you have less people doing it than if you said, yes, you can all push drugs as long as you don't push it after March the 3rd.
But no, I understand that. I'm not convinced it's going to stop it.
No, it's nothing.
There's too much at stake.
No, it's not. We're not saying that you're going to do any silver bullet to stop it. But I can assure you, you will get less of it because there's absolutely no need now to spend that money. And when you make drugs illegal, you are reducing the amount of people that are going to sell it and the amount of people that are going to use it. This is a similar discussion I had with marijuana just the other day. Anything that you do to reduce the punitive efforts that's going to happen after that, you are going to increase its use.
Well, okay, let's touch on an element of what you suggested about the change. So how many people and any number of candidates can step forward and the government funds the debates, is what you're saying?
Well, you would have some publicly organized debates. Again, how those debates are to be organized, that is a discussion to have. But yes, it could be a combination of, say, public-private partnership to do that, just like Chamber of Commerce now has debates. You could have those, and you could also have some government-sponsored debates as well. But the whole idea is that you're leveling the playing field. You're giving the most poorest candidate in the room the same opportunity as the richest candidate in the room to get their voice out, to give their ideas, their plans, how well they articulate it. Everybody, as much as possible, has a completely level playing field. That is not the case right now.
And no turkeys or hams will be delivered.
Well, it will be illegal. So yeah, somebody can sneak it.
Illegal.
No, there's not. It's not illegal to hand out turkeys and hams.
Well, for the purposes of securing a vote.
No, but see again, but we educating the public, right? It's not illegal to hand out turkeys and hams. This is what you need to understand. But if you made the process to let's be clear, if you're going to be a candidate in the election, you need to know you can't spend money. You can't do X, Y, and Z. First of all, it's a lot of candidates would probably love it because they could turn to say, sorry, Joe, I know you keep asking me for $500, but I can't. I mean, what do you think about that, Austin? You agree? Yeah, there's a lot of candidates that sit and say, oh my God, what did I get myself?
Well, there is a clause specifically for the candidates called treating that the elections office particularly focused on very closely under the last election that deals exactly with what you're saying. Now, handing out turkeys and hams is not treating if it doesn't occur outside of the election campaign cycle. But it is treating if you are handing it out with the purpose of gaining a vote, and that's how the elections office considers it to be.
It all gets convoluted.
And a previous commissioner of police, I think, put a value, I don't remember the exact value, but I think it was around $10 or something like that on a plate of food, and if it was in excess of that, then they looked down on it and all that kind of stuff. But you have to understand that those things are extremely hard to stamp out.
But we're in agreement. You're in agreement then that how difficult this is to stamp out. But think about how much easier it is if you get up and say, it's absolutely no public meetings, it's absolutely no there's nothing. It's just public debate, public sponsored debates. Because now you can now say to the candidate, well, sorry, the turkey and the ham thing, what's going on there?
Yeah, the absence of public meetings means no refreshments,
nothing.
No assumption that you're buying my vote with a plate of food. Just, here are the protocol. You get nominated. These are the debates. These is when the public can know it's going to happen.
That's it.
Then you go to the polls.
There's already a lacuna in what you've proposed.
Mm-hmm. What's the lacuna?
Because it'll be done privately.
Well, like I said, to your point, illegalities will always exist. But I can assure you that making the drug illegal is going to decrease the opportunities for it to be used, as opposed to not making it illegal. So we're not disagreeing that maybe it's impossible to stamp out, but I think you're carrying us much closer in that direction.
Well, I think that anyone who wants to get cannabis on the island can get it, and it's illegal. So on that note, I would suggest that people cast their vote in the referendum.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for your contribution, and certainly the back and forth was, I think, quality.
Good. It was good.
Because it provides the listening audience with that education. I just want, because the caller referred to math as being, perhaps an argument point, I want to get back to the opinion piece where Mr. Whitaker proposes that the national voting would occur specifically when voting for the executive branch of government, which comprise of the premier and ministers. Now, why is that problematic? Well, if we look at the present makeup of the 2025 election campaign landscape, it started out with 59 candidates. We're down to, 58 candidates, 57 candidates now. But in that total, on nomination day, we just use the figures at nomination day. I don't remember what the ones who dropped out. I think they were all independents. But we had 35 members that occupied.
One dropped out, one was removed, both independents. So
we had 35 members that were make up the traditional party landscape. PPM have 13 candidates. The Cayman Islands National Party has 12 candidates. And the Caymanian Community Party had 10. That left a further 23, now 21, independent candidates.
Mm-hmm.
If we are deciding for the executive based on the party structure, then surely it is easier to identify, of the three parties, who the tip of the spear is, i.e. who will be of that group leading that group, and of that group who they have decided would occupy the minister seats. But then where do we apply the 21 or 23 independents? Presumably they're independent. Presumably every one of them believe they could be premier. Presumably every one of them believe they are minister quality. So in the demographic that we have today, if we were electing the executive branch on a national vote, how would we demonstrate fairness, or would we be able to identify both a premier and or ministers out of the independent members who are running for office?
Well, I mean, you can see a challenge in terms of, and I also want to argue in favor of what the individual is saying as well, but you can see the challenge, first of all, because you would technically have to have the candidates coming forward and putting themselves up as either premier, or you would have to have candidates coming forward and putting themselves up as potential ministers. Because then otherwise, how is that vote going to be taking place? Are you just going to have 19, or are you going to have 57, whatever that number is, and you're just going and checking a box and saying who should potentially be minister? Sounds a little bit chaotic. One thing I want to say in favor of what the author is saying is that one could argue, is there someone on the phone, sir?
Well, we have a voice note comment on WhatsApp, but it's a lengthy one, so I'll give you the opportunity to respond to the caller.
So just to say this, I mean, one of the things you could see that would be beneficial is that if you ended up voting and you got a popular vote across the island, national vote for the premier, many persons could argue that there's not much ideological differences between the parties in Cayman anyway, because we've just seen even a combination of UPM now and the progressives. And one argument that could possibly be made is that that person having such a strong national support, that the other persons who are selected as ministers would find it politically prudent to follow the direction of that particular leader, considering that they were able to attain the national vote for premier. But again, it is challenging, and I think that I have difficulty seeing how all of that is going to work, especially because you're really trying to create a bit of a hybrid, and I am off the top of my head not sure that's going to work. So let's hit that voice message now.
All right. Well, again, I don't know whether it's on topic or not, but we're going to hit the button and find out.
Ellio and Austin. This is Florence Brewing-Nose. I have always been against that OMOV new system. I didn't think that it would work, and I thought that we were exposing ourselves to losing our political power and might to people that are not even born Caymanians. They're therefore risking us losing our autonomy and making decisions for our lives by electing people that do not collaborate with the interest of the Cayman Islands or its people. Now, my reason for saying that is that I believe that having the system of 19 is a high risk under the OMOV system, for the simple reason that eventually people are going to start moving the electoral boundaries, okay, in order to accommodate more votes for themselves. They're going to start doing developments for particular special interest groups that could relate to nationality, national origin, of course, and even ethnicity, if it can go that far. Now, what would happen there is the ultimate result is that you could have people coming from Timbuktu. They buy property, they develop it, and they begin to sell parcels of land to certain people that they want in there. After a while, once they realize that the system that the Caymanians think is working for them is really not working, because they are gaining more, expats are gaining more political power every day, okay, because of lax immigration. So they take advantage of that system and they buy property. They sell that property to people that represent them nationally, socially, probably even religiously, and morally. Okay. They select someone from that particular community or development. It could be a village at some point. And they select an individual that they will groom. Did you hear what I say? The word groom? Groom that individual in order to be a leader, to get elected. And if the system has not changed as yet, they will also send people up to the UK. This is where they go when they want rights. But they go over our heads. They'll send people to the UK to lobby for more political power and might, taking it out of our hands and telling the UK why they should give them the right to vote and the right to run for office. This is what happens when you have a 19-member constituency, or let's say a 19-member electoral system. I was against it from morning, and I'm still against it. And what's his name? Kenneth Brown is correct. Ellio is correct. I thought Ellio was a great proponent of it, but at this moment, no, he's changed his tune. Like Bill Clinton said, once you get new information, you can change your mind, which is correct. So I think that the old system was better and safer for the people of the Cayman Islands to maintain their political power and might. Okay? And this is what needs to be done. Because we have already lost too much power. We've lost too much strength. Political power and might is all we have left. And we need to guard it with our very lives and be very careful in the decisions that we make politically in changing systems. Changing a system is very serious. When you change systems, you have to look at who benefits, who doesn't benefit, who can take advantage, or who is taken advantage of. What are the risks? It's time to critical think when you're looking at making changes politically. God bless.
God bless you also, and thank you for those comments.
Yeah, I think first of all, a lot of things that she has said has tremendous amount of merit. Again, I have given this example before, and I think a lot of things were ill considered when it came to single-member constituencies. And what I want to show the public is, first of all, when you have single-member constituencies, you are going to amplify minority voices. And let's just give some very simple, good examples. If you look at Georgetown South, I can tell you that Georgetown South is an area that consists of a significant number of persons who, in my opinion, are environmentalists / extreme environmentalists. I see this based on chats and stuff that I'm on. That group there, I have never seen them saying, hey, I'm in favor of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like everything is an objection. You know, right. They want to build a bridge, object. Mm-hmm. Want to build a building, object. The only thing I think they don't object to is the building of their own houses, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter. Let's just say in Georgetown South, and just pull a number. Let's just say there's 150 extremists on the environmental side, because they have their own reasons for being like that way as well. You know, maybe they've, come from some country where they've done all their development, they're tired of development now, and they want to sit back and relax and just want to enjoy the bush. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm going to reach that stage one day too. But you got to remember, there's some younger person that hasn't done their share of development. But either way, 150 persons, let's say, is in Georgetown South, and let's say another 150 persons are in Georgetown East, because remember, South Sound was cut into two. Mm-hmm. And then let's pick on Red Bay. Yep. All right, let's say 150.
Let's pick on Red Bay.
Yeah, let's say 150 in each one of those. I can assure you that today, the candidates running in Georgetown South, running in Georgetown East, and running in Red Bay will not want to say anything about development or anything that would be even remotely seen as being anti-environment. Mm. And the reason why they're doing that is because they do not want to alienate this 150 potential voters. Mm-hmm. Now, when Georgetown was at large, that 150, 300, which came to 450, those 450 persons largely was irrelevant.
Compared to the 7,000
Compared to 7,000, they were irrelevant. And not that their concerns should be made irrelevant, but it didn't have to be at the fore of the campaign. You did not have to have your policies and your ideas, your plans for the country dictated by this 450 altogether, and even worse, the 150 in each spot. You think I'm wrong? Call the candidates from Georgetown South, call the candidates from Georgetown East and call the candidates from Red Bay and ask them if they're going to be pro X, Y, and Z, which is going to be viewed anti-environment. They're going to say no. And I'm telling you, it's not because they don't necessarily believe that, for example, back to cruise tourism, it's not that they don't necessarily believe you should have peers. But they're being dictated because I want my seat. And unfortunately, you're going to probably do the same thing while you're in office, because if you fail to do the same thing in office, the 150 that meant nothing and should have meant nothing, now amplified means a tremendous opportunity for you to keep your seat. You're going to reform.
Well, I think that analogy will be interesting. I think it will be proven, certainly not by us, but by the results come April 30th. Because when we use Cruz just as an example, and we consider at least the three-party groups that are in existence, the PPM seem to be leaning very heavily in support of Cruz birthing because they proposed it, certainly, multiple administrations ago, not least of which the last administration. Whereas we seem to have the TCCP, standing on the side of the environment, presumably whether they support Cruz birthing or not, they haven't come out to say. Then we have the National Party, who haven't said anything on that subject, I guess perhaps playing it safe. And again, to the point of to your point of hosting debates across the board, perhaps today, in today's first debate with the Chamber, we'll begin to get a sense as to what all those sides are thinking. But it is 5:58, and we do need to pause, take a short commercial break. We do have at least one more voice note, which has come through on WhatsApp, which we're going to read. But keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talks right here on 103.1 FM.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. Home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
Do you have a healthcare question but not sure who to ask? Contact HSA's Patient Call Center to speak to one of our experienced clinical team members. We are here to answer your questions and help guide you through your healthcare journey. Need to make an appointment? Our team can help. Contact HSA at 949-8600 or email info@hsa.ky. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you.
Bobo FM. We're making Bobo FM bigger and better. We've got a brand new frequency with even more power. Retune your FM radio to 103.1 now. This is Bobo FM, the home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. Now in our new home of 103.1 FM. This is Bobo 103.1.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here. More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
I'm Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. The United States has increased restrictions on Russian access to US payment systems for its energy and banking systems as negotiations continue about President Trump's ceasefire proposal on Ukraine. It follows a qualified response from President Putin, who said the idea of an end to hostilities was good, but raised questions about how it would work. Mr. Trump called the response promising. From Washington, Sarah Smith.
Donald Trump said he thinks that they're very close to getting agreement with Russia and that he's getting very good signals from Moscow, where, of course, his presidential envoy, Steve Witkoff, is there having discussions with the Russians. And he even said that he himself would actually love to meet with or talk with Vladimir Putin about this. But there was a kind of hint of a threat there as well, saying that it would be very disappointing for the world if Russia doesn't agree to this ceasefire, because, of course, this process cannot move forward unless Russia, along with Ukraine, both agree to this 30-day ceasefire to allow them to move into the next phase of negotiations.
President Zelensky of Ukraine has condemned Mr. Putin's comments as predictable and manipulative. He said the Russian leader was afraid to tell President Trump directly that he wanted to continue the war. Mr. Zelensky called for more sanctions to put pressure on Russia. President Trump has repeated his ambition to annex Greenland and make Canada a US state. He described the US-Canadian border as an artificial line and said tariffs would continue as the US didn't need their stuff.
To be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago.
Canada has made clear that it will never become the 51st state. One of the main stock indices in the United States, the S&P 500, has confirmed it's officially in correction after another week of heavy losses. A correction is a drop of more than 10%. A fall of the S&P has registered over the past 4 weeks. Our North America business correspondent, Erin Delmore, is in New York.
It's been another difficult day on Wall Street, and this comes after 3 weeks of declines, an especially brutal week this week as we've seen the global trade war booming and really causing a lot of uncertainty, seeing markets respond negatively. So today we are seeing the Dow on track for its worst week since 2022, the S&P officially entering and even closing in correction territory. Even the NASDAQ is down today, and that's where we'd seen a bright spot earlier this week with investors rushing in to buy tech stocks at their lower price point, buoying that end of the market. But today, just a bruising day on Wall Street.
This is the World News from the BBC. Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed on the text of a peace agreement to end more than 3 decades of conflict in the South Caucasus. Both countries said negotiations had concluded, but no date has been set to sign the deal. Azerbaijan has been insisting that Armenia change its constitution to give up its claim to Nagorno-Karabakh. The territory was the focus of 2 wars. After the text was agreed, the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan spoke to reporters.
The peace agreement contains a clause on the deployment of third country forces. This means that after the peace agreement comes into force, both Armenia and Azerbaijan should not deploy third country forces, with all the ensuing consequences.
The former president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, will make his first appearance before the International Criminal Court on Friday. He was arrested on Monday on murder charges linked to his war on drugs, in which thousands of purported dealers and users were killed. He's defended his actions, arguing he was trying to fight street crime. His supporters say he's been arrested because his family has fallen out with his successor, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Prosecutors in Belgium have said they suspect the Chinese telecoms giant Huawei of benefiting from corrupt lobbying practices targeting the European Parliament. Judges have requested that the offices of 2 parliamentary assistants be sealed. Several people have been detained for questioning after raids in Belgium and Portugal. One person has been arrested in France. Huawei has told the BBC it takes the allegations seriously. Figures suggest that global sea levels rose by more than expected last year. Analysis by the US space agency NASA found they increased by 0.59 centimetres, well above the 0.43 centimetres predicted by scientists. That is the latest BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Straight Talk with your host, Austin Harris, and myself, Ellio Solomon. We are here on your radio dial, 103.1 or 89.1 FM. But of course, again, we want to encourage you to switch it over to 103.1 because the rope on 89.1 is a little bit shorter.
That's right.
745-2626 here in the studio. If you want to call, join the conversation, or take us in a completely different direction. I still have some more comments to make on single-member constituency and national vote, but we've got some messages, Mr. Harris.
We do. Certainly, again, in addition to the regular hard line, you can reach us on our WhatsApp line by dialing 928-2562. And, of course, by dialing, I mean you can send us either a voice note on the WhatsApp platform or a traditional WhatsApp text message. Please don't try to call us on the WhatsApp line because we can't take WhatsApp calls. We do have two WhatsApp commentary. One is the traditional text, a very short but concise one. Good evening, Ellio and Austin. I am enjoying the show tremendously. Very great topic, very good conversation. Keep up the excellent work. Well, thank you very much for those very kind statements and sentiments, and we're glad that we can bring you the topics that are certainly interesting to you, and hopefully you're learning something from it. We do have a WhatsApp audio note, and there are two of them back to back. I'm hoping they'll play one right after the other, but if there's a delay, forgive me. But let's take the first comment.
Good evening, Ellio and Austin. It's very important, I think, that people are discussing the system in Cayman, because personally I believe that there's no accountable government in Cayman anymore. The private interests are controlling government, and the only way in which you can possibly control that is to change the system and make it more accountable. Regarding the issue of the premier, for example, I think it is absolutely ridiculous in this day and age that you can have somebody who is a premier whose position is almost the same as that of a president to be indirectly elected. We must remember that in the UK, the way they wound up with that ridiculous system of saying, well, the prime minister is not quite a president, but is the first among equals, which is a contradiction in terms anyway. It is because the crown was trying to hold on to a lot of its power, so they to work this convoluted system about where the executive is really the queen, but then the cabinet works together. That should not be. If you look at the UK today, Rishi Sunak, although I was happy he became premier, the truth of the matter, he was never going to become premier if it had gone to a direct election. Why? Because both those two women were beating him in the nationwide poll, and even in Cayman. I mean, right now, if you were to have a direct election, I think Andre Ebanks would become premier, but I'm not quite sure that he can become premier. Why? Because of the system. I think it is necessary, and I think I applaud those people who are looking at the system and trying to be creative about it, because trying to stay within the Westminster system is not working, and it is not working especially in relation to places like the Cayman Islands, where the private interests are creating that block between the people who vote for you and the possibility that they might do what you want to be done as voters. In the end, they are being elected, but doing what the other side wants, the other side that is not elected. Otherwise, have a good evening. This is a very, very long discussion, and I hope that the new government can take it up as a special project. One more thing, gentlemen. Let me just give you an example. In a number of countries throughout the world now, when you go to elect an MP, you've got two votes. You've got one for the president and another one for an MP, and they are directly elected. You get elected as a president, not even through an electoral college like in the UK, a direct vote. They'll say, okay, this candidate for presidency got 2 million, the other one got 2.1 million, the other one wins. To me, that's a better system where you directly elect both of them by a direct vote. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, too, for those comments. And again, 928-2562 is our WhatsApp number. If you want to share your comments and views via that platform, you can either send us a voice note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. Otherwise, the hard line, 745-2626, is the number. Ellio, you wanted to comment.
Yeah, I read a book many years ago. Not that you have to read a book to learn that, but bear in mind that whoever sets the rules of the game is the one who controls it. They have the chance to win. And again, I warn the persons, again, despite those who will be jumping out and saying, Ellio, we're not going independent, not calling you to go independent, but I want to highlight again that I saw the book myself because it was actually left by one of our good friends in Radio Cayman.
Mm-hmm.
And our good friend, Duncan Taylor, the then governor, was one of the persons behind this single-member constituency. And one should ask themselves, why was the governor so involved in SMC? But I want to say, as I've mentioned, if you look at the situation, when you divide up the country, you amplify minority voices. In other words, when I say you amplify it, you give power, additional power, to voices that didn't have it. And in some instances, that could be good. You know, like I could think of amplifying, let's say, persons who were handicapped. I could probably see that as a good thing. But I can tell you right now, there's a constituency in Cayman that if you were supportive of marijuana, you would probably guarantee to get your seat. There's at least 2 or 1.5, if not 2, that if you are Jamaican-based, chances are you are going to get a seat. And there is at least 3 sections that are very much environmental. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is, in my humble opinion, that is not what I think is best for the country. And to some of the points that Balika mentioned as well, you have to bear in mind, when I talk about the finances, why is that system important? Because now when you're making it that this is a financial gain, it will mean that more and more the persons who have money is who is going to control the direction where the country goes. Have you not noticed the wealth of some of the persons that are running? Is that by coincidence? It's because money is going to determine the game. And in addition to that, if the persons aren't directly with the money running in the election, then the persons who want to serve you, who want to try to deliver something for Caymanians, have to go beg the person who has the money so he can hand it out to these amplified voices in order to get elected and to stay elected, supposedly to serve you. But irrespective of how well-intended he or she is, or how they are, the bottom line is chances are they will not get to do for you what they want because they have to serve the masters. And the masters are the amplified voices, and the masters are the ones who are giving them money. If you are not seeing right now already what we have seen in Parliament, in terms of the trading and the back and the forth and the money that's being given. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. We can't be that blind. I am telling you that single-member constituency is a gift that the United Kingdom gives to every one of its colonies when it's ready to somehow, I'm trying to find a nice word, when I'm ready to let you go, when I'm ready to grease you up, however you want to put it, that is the gift the United Kingdom gives you. You know, a lot of people listen to the national anthem that the UK had, and they hear God Save Our Gracious, but we only sing a very short part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage you to go read the rest of it. Read the section that talks about how we will confound their politics, etc. Because people don't sing that part.
Mm-hmm.
But here is a country who, in their national anthem, talks about confounding the politics of others. Okay? It's there in black and white.
Well, we will check that out.
You do that.
When we come back. It is 6:15 in the studios, and we do need to pause and take a very short commercial break. But the phone lines remain open at 745-2626, giving us, again, give or take about 13 minutes before we have to ring the final bell. But keep it locked. Straight Talk will continue next, right here on Bobo 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo FM.
Hey man, could it be you? Tortuga's 10K giveaway is back, and someone's walking away with $10,000 in cash. Every time you spend $25 at Tortuga Fine Wine and Spirits or discount liquors, in-store or online at tortuga.ky, you get a shot at winning big. As well as $10,000 in cash, we've got thousands in giveaways to hand out every week. Think staycations, the latest iPhones, exclusive experiences, and more. Get in to win. Visit tortuga.ky for the full terms and conditions.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio. Have your say on 745-2626. Bobo FM.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris, joined by Ellio Solomon. The phone lines are open, 745-2626. or if talking and using your credit isn't your thing, you can reach out to us by activating our WhatsApp number at 928-2562, and from there you can either send us a voice note or you can shoot us a traditional WhatsApp text message. I am searching as we speak for the lyrics to the national anthem, God Save Our King, now. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, there, you're right. There we go. So we have the traditional first chorus, but then we have the second one. It says, O Lord, O our God, arise, scatter his enemies and make them fall. Confound their politics, frustrate their knavish tricks. On thee our hopes we fix. God save us all. That's the third chorus in the overall three chorus lines of the national anthem, the UK national anthem.
Yeah, and not every time that somebody's going, if because somebody has come to you and tell you I'm doing something nice, it doesn't mean you have to look at what the system does. Again, I keep saying about politicians, don't just listen to what they say, look at what it is that they're doing, right? We can say anything, but a lot of times people are motivated by this rhetoric, you see. And I highlight that human beings tend to look at where you point. They look at what you're pointing at, whereas a dog tends to look at the finger of the pointer. And bottom line is, sometimes when it comes to this politics, we need to be a little bit more doggish. We need to focus on who's pointing, what exactly it is that they're doing, and not necessarily where they're trying to point us to.
Right.
And if we actually look at it's just like the other day when you're getting up and talking about the persons who are making comments that, they did this, they did that, and failing. Again, they're pointing, but they're failing to mention that I was there with them, right? I was right there. So it's like, four guys robbing the bank, one guy's running out and pointing, they're robbing the bank. Yeah, you were a part of them.
You were there.
So he needs to be arrested as well.
Yes.
So when we look at this single-member constituency system, I am saying to you that you're going to see that is going to amplify some minority voices. And maybe if it lasts long enough, that might actually be beneficial to the Caymanians because we're quickly becoming the minority. But I want to say to you, as I've mentioned before, Caymanians don't have to concern themselves necessarily with saying we all have to get out and have 1 million children. No, ownership doesn't have to work that way. Ownership can be just like a company where you have a handful of persons and everybody else works for the company. But I'm telling you that if you look at the system, that's not what's happening. You are going to have politicians continually, more and more so, serving those who are running that have the money, because they can be the one who can finance everybody in the campaign. And you think that they're going to finance the entire campaign and then they're not going to be able to dictate where we go? Of course they can dictate where you go. And that's not necessarily 100% of criticism, because maybe where they want to go is a positive thing. Maybe it's a positive direction, but what is incumbent on us is that we bear in mind that the money is shaping where the game is going. And the other thing that is shaping where the game is going is because if I have a bunch of environmentalists down in this particular area, it silences me at the minimum. If I don't even take overtly their side, it silences me at the minimum. All right? And so I really think that we need to look at a national vote. It should be a case where overall we have 19 seats on this company called Cayman Islands. We have 19 board of directors, and everyone should have at least 1 to 19 votes to be able to influence who those persons are that are going to serve us.
Indeed.
I think it creates more unity, and it creates a much more a national perspective, even in respect to the candidates, not so insular.
Well, I just want to make an observation because obviously we are on different sides of the coin as it relates to one man, one vote versus multi-member constituency or single-member constituency. But a key aspect of the one man, one vote, single-member constituency direction in which we arrived at, a key component of that, which was voted on and approved but has never been enacted, is the advisory district councils. Again, when we look at one man, one vote, the entire premise behind it is the principle of equal representation in voting. That said, that every voter, whether you are in Georgetown or you are in East End and North Side, the voter in East End, North Side has the equal opportunity to decide the outcome and formation of the government as would a voter in Georgetown. We can argue the demographics of that and, who's fair and who's not. What are the key issues that are important to the nation versus perhaps maybe important to a smaller community? Those are legitimate conversations. But when we go back to the opinion piece, which this whole conversation started under, and of course the writer spoke about the disillusionment or the disconnect between the voter and the outcome, i.e. elected leaders, where they participate only in the election campaign. But are we getting the best? Are we getting the most competent? Are we getting the most capable? That is, again, a bit of a flip of the coin. One of the elements that were supposed to work hand in hand with one man, one vote and the principle of equal representation was the advisory district councils. This enabled the individual constituencies or districts to decide of themselves who they thought should be the representatives going forward. Not the parties. Like, for example, you have the PPM conference and they, go to their annual conference supposedly and let their membership decide, who their candidates are going to be. Again, it sounds nice, but I believe the party themselves come to that conference with a notion of who they're going to run anyway, and their party conference is just there to vet that exercise. Now, we can debate whether that's legitimate or otherwise, but yes, exactly, correct, to legitimize what we have already decided. But the whole notion of making that one man, one vote, the equal representation for all voters, hung on the premise that how we would engage that individual voter to be a part of the overall good was through the advisory district councils. Now, again, I was present, and again, I'm not going to feign, it wasn't me type of conversation, because certainly I was a part of the government that looked at this whole advisory district councils after it was approved from 2017 to 2024, and it was felt by the last administration, not this one, but the one before it, that the advisory district councils worked better and were considered in the environment that was previously in existence of multi-member constituencies when we had Georgetown, Bordentown, West Bay. But it was not conducive or did not necessarily work as the Constitution intended it to work in the single-member constituencies. Again, I disagreed with that belief. I believed, yes, instead of having perhaps 7 advisory district councils, we could end up and would end up with 19 advisory district councils. But if the point was to ensure that in addition to the equality of voting power by the individual voter, it also included the individual voter at the constituency level to have greater say as to who is selected to at least run for office. We've never given the voter that choice. And again, simply because the advisory district councils has never been enacted. We do have a caller on the line and 4 minutes left. No, they've gone. So,
just again, I want to draw a clear distinction so the person, and maybe Ms. Noza might have misunderstood this because I'm not sure about one of her comments, but in case, I hope this clarifies it. I want to stress the thing that I am against is single-member constituency. It is the division lines of 19 areas in this country. Do not confuse that with one man, one vote. One man, one vote and single-member constituencies are two completely different things, even though people put them together like they're lovers. They're two different things. One man, one vote could have worked right with the multi-member constituency. If all people were worried about was equality of the vote, we could have kept the same 6 constituencies and give each person one vote. So even if there's 7 running, you still only have one vote. So therefore, you have an equality. No one is sending any more to the parliament. So I don't have a problem with one man, one vote. My only question would be is, if you believe in equality of the vote, why give there's 12 board of directors or there are 19 board of directors, why only give them 1? Give them 19. That's a better equality. But if you want to give them 1, fine, give them 1. I suggest you give them 19. But the problem I have is the division of those lines and the implications and what happens as a result of those lines being drawn.
Indeed. They have to go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Hey.
Hey, we got 2 minutes, about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, so you can't be as long-winded this time.
All right. it's not the lines that divide us. It's what we believe that divide us. And this is why how people understand the functions of government and their honest participation in that process will determine, how it plays out. But the problem with the idea of people thinking that the district councils are going to somehow magically save us, the problem with that is the lack of focus on the operative word, advisory. And on that note, I would like to say that I advise that we think about that a little more carefully.
All right. Caller, I thank you very much for those comments. We certainly would engage you with that. I would just simply engage you very quickly on this notion. You know what? I was an ex-politician. Ellio was an ex-politician. We all ran for votes in our respective constituencies or districts. It would be foolhardy of the politician running for office, particularly in the current environment, if our constituents in large majority advised that this is their wishes and that same MP opted to ignore it and go in a different direction. He or she would still hold office for the length of that term, but that would be the end of his or her career. So advisory, yes, you're right, is not a shall, but you may, but certainly if it's coming from a voter to their would-be MP, I think the lines are more distinctly drawn.
It's a legal may, but a political shall.
Quite right.
But I want to say, he says that the lines don't divide us. Let's be 100% clear. Once you get an official drawing and they draw those little lines, we start thinking within those lines. Okay? Yeah. In fact, I think even answer, when you draw a line on pen and paper, even the answer won't pass it. But those lines start to shape us. We already know in our mind where we are. I'm in Georgetown East, you're in Georgetown West, and the list goes on.
That's all the time we have for today, but join us tomorrow for Open Mic Friday as we wrap up another busy week. That's all the time we have for Straight Talk Today.
The BBC on Bobo.